Hey, how you doing today? My name is Riley, and thank you so much for stopping by. Today, I wanted to talk about Crowsworn, as Leth recently did a Q&A on his Twitch channel live with one of the lead developers, Alex. And so, yeah, we're just going to listen to this Q&A. And basically, the entire live stream was like 3+ hours, and ain't nobody got time for that. It was kind of long. I'm not going to lie, but there were a lot of very interesting questions that were brought up, and we got a decent number of answers and some new information. Rather than having people wait through 3 hours of it, I'm sure a lot of people didn't even know that this happened. In fact, leave me a comment down below if you're one of those. So let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. Let's go.
Alifa, how is the game balanced so that you can't just cheese and roll through all attacks?
One of the things is somebody pointed out in chat is you eventually do have to attack. That's one thing.
Yeah, of course.
Keep rolling through everything, but it's also after you finish rolling, if you end up in a position where you're in an attack, it's not like you can just trigger iframes again. So it is very like finely tuned that due to the roll being committed to a certain like on-screen.
Just like you can't just dash forever with Hollow Knight, right?
Point A to point B. If you end up inside if you roll imprecisely and end up inside of a damage collider, you're taking that damage. There's no way to like trigger a roll.
I don't think you can change the
permanent invulnerability. And
the length of the
tight window,
roll
but
either.
It works out because of the fact that you can't just like turn it on and off. You're committed to a distance. You can't.
You're committed to a distance. Right? Yeah, the roll's gonna always be the same.
In the air. So if you have a sustained damage collider on the ground, for example, and you try to roll through it, if it's sustained and sitting there, you're gonna take damage, as is like the case with the Sir Garen spears or something in the boss fight. You can't just roll through those. You have to jump. Yeah.
All right, we have a question from. Looks like Zack Attack. Was Crowsworn designed with speedrunning in mind?
As I was talking to Alex, and I guess you guys recently watching this demo speedrun, one thing that was interesting that we noticed
to a certain extent, it probably a little bit.
Like you guys perfected the way to beat the boss, but the only reason that was even possible is because, assuming you go in a certain way, the behavioral patterns are completely deterministic. Now, that being said,
so
if players play differently and position themselves differently, like guys who aren't mastering it the way you guys are, then it does come off looking more stochastic, I guess. We kind of had a talk being like, man, can we figure out how to make all our bosses really fit within this criterion that if you're playing it, let's say you position yourself 100% picture perfect frame every time as the player with attacks, that you would experience the exact same like fight every time, basically photo perfect, because I think that would kind of be cool, because it's not going to happen with 99.9% of the players what you guys are doing, right? The speedruns.
But that would mean that anybody who's doing it, like who is doing something picture perfect the exact same time every way, what is that called? There's a certain type of speedrun category, tool assisted speedrun, because a tool assisted speedrun means that anybody could have the computer essentially kind of do it for them, or they could be that precise where it is frame perfect. So that's kind of interesting to think about.
But it is cool that it can be done, because it's very impressive to watch and interesting, kind of like solving a puzzle. So that being said, it wasn't designed with speedrunning in mind probably initially, but we are gearing towards thinking about it more, and nowadays it kind of is, I guess.
So it's not so random. That's good to know.
Will Crowsworn release within 2025?
We're just trying to make it as good as we can. That's really what it is. We're not trying
if I had to guess,
to, like, we are working hard and working all the time, but
probably 2026.
Sometimes we get ideas when we're developing. Like recently we had some really good ideas that were never planned for.
That's my guess.
But we think they're really cool, so we want to put them in. So
I'm gonna throw that out there. What do you think, chat? When do you think Crowsworn's coming out?
You know, we can just guarantee you guys will be happy with it when it's out.
Any new ability ain't exist in any Metroidvania game.
Certainly, there's some ideas that we've got in there that I haven't seen anywhere else. Like, there's definitely stuff that just kind of came off from, you know.
What kind of
okay,
or how many collectibles will there be?
Well, we can say the body parts are in there for sure. They kind of act like,
I think they're not going to fully answer this one because we haven't seen everything yet, which is fine.
Armor or something in Diablo as well, I guess. It's kind of something in between, I guess. It has like weight properties to it, but there's those,
interesting that it's kind of like Diablo. I didn't think of it like that.
And we haven't 100% committed to, but we're kind of sitting on it, whether it's a good idea.
Ooh.
Are there other activities besides fighting and exploring, like mini games?
Yes.
Whoa, mini games? Is that something that they've talked about before? I don't remember seeing anything on their Twitter or even their Kickstarter backer. I don't remember seeing like fishing or anything like that.
Ooh.
Let's just leave it at that. Yes.
Will the world of Crowsworn be bigger than Hollow Knight?
it's just factually bigger.
Yeah,
it's just it is.
Oh, you mean dimensions, right? We're talking about like size. When you say bigger, you don't mean like some kind of nebulous figure in terms of lore or like figuratively or whatever. We're talking about like take the number of navigable pixels and put it on a screen, right? Like that's what we're talking about. Yeah. Okay.
We launch at the same day on all platforms.
I think that was part of a Kickstarter backer, like
on all the ones that were
that was just supposed to happen,
unless some crazy reason comes up with it. But if we do that, I think we have to come up with a good explanation for our Kickstarter backers, because right now the expectation is that it'll be simultaneous, right?
That was the goal.
Because we did the Kickstarter, we want to do that.
That's right.
And
I think we're going to see it released on all platforms.
Reason something comes up, it complicates it or whatever, but I don't think that's going to happen. I know it's a bit early to ask, but will there be DLC?
It's going to have to be on the Switch too.
Kickstarter thing, right? Like certain elements of that are DLC, like the stuff that was added to it. Some of those goals were like
some of the goals were DLC. All right, so they reached that it got funded. Boss rush mode, nightmare mode, tribunal. Make this a little bigger. It's kind of hard to read there. It's Isles of Vladar free DLC. I completely forgot about that. They added a DLC to the thing. Okay, so this is content that's just not going to be ready day one. Return to where it all began. Explore the ancient Isles of Vladar, a dark region whose history predates the Birandrel itself. Interesting. I feel like you could get into the lore just with this stuff. This will be added as a free DLC post-launch. I completely missed that before. Okay. Animated cinematic cutscenes. We've already seen those and they look amazing. Altered ending quest line. Yeah, I figured that was probably going to be in there no matter what. We'll develop a whole alternate ending quest line with additional bosses. Ooh, additional bosses. That's always what I want to see. NPCs and some mechanics to boot. Heck yes. I'm so excited. I'm so excited for Crowsworn, and that's why we're making this video. Let's go.
Like
yeah. Well, I don't know. Maybe they mean paid DLC.
No, it would all be like free content update.
Free
DLC.
Yeah, no paid.
I feel as an indie, for lack of a better term, the forefathers set the stage, right?
Yeah, like Concerned Ape.
Hollow Knight did it. Brony did it. Everyone that's
true. That's just kind of the way to go. It gets people to get back into the game, and they start talking about more.
Multiple or a secret ending. Multiple endings. Or
that's part. We just looked at it.
I think we did disclose that on the Kickstarter.
That's part of the.
I mean, if we did,
the Kickstarter.
It's out there now.
Yeah,
like that time you did the interview with Relia.
Relia, that's me.
What did I spill the beans on?
I don't remember what.
I can't remember what. There was
like that's new.
There was something like what that he shared.
Will the game have deeply hidden secrets?
I can't remember.
Should I answer the secrets?
Let me answer it.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes. If this Kickstarter is reopened, would all tiers be available? No.
They're not opening the Kickstarter back up.
It would only be the digital ones. I think we can openly talk. I think if we can. Sorry.
We talked about this in the last video.
We got some. There's certain like the physicals, because it's not us that's producing it, and there's certain commitment at the thing. We can't open those. Right. It's just a logistical nightmare for the merch guys. But the stuff that's for us, which is the digital elements, those tiers would be the only ones that are open. Yeah, if we were to reopen,
I got like 5 of the skill books. I can't wait.
Right, Forte? I think so. Yeah, you can skip
cutscenes. Yeah.
I don't know why you'd want to skip the cutscenes.
The way he does.
Where'd the design come from? Man, I don't even know. It's just like. I was just like iterating through a bunch of stuff. I mean, when I was doing it, I thought Plague Doctors were kind of cool.
Plague Doctors are not used enough in video games. I'm surprised.
Dante from Devil May Cry and Alucard from Helsing.
Does the protagonist have an actual name, or is it still secret?
It's a secret.
Roughly how long will a playthrough
take? Don't know the name yet.
I don't know if we can answer that right now.
They probably don't know yet. Yeah. It's still too
early.
Depends
on the player too, right?
It's
so hard to gauge because it's like so variable. How good are you at it?
Will any of the body parts affect the character visually?
No. This is a great question.
Not actually. I shouldn't say no. Like if you mean particle effects and things like that, maybe, but it's not going to change.
We already know that the particle effects will change because there are in the demo. There's some boots you can get that when you land, it like makes waves or shock waves go out. But wearing those boots doesn't like. I mean, potentially the boots could make like a stomping sound or something like that, but it doesn't right now. But wearing like a different arm doesn't, like, you wouldn't see that arm during an attack.
Like sprites or anything, because that would be,
Yeah.
it's all hand drawn. It would be like way too much in terms of adding to development.
Black Knight asks, was Crowsworn always the idea when you guys were when you guys started developing, or did it start as another idea and slowly evolve into?
This is another
what now
great
Crowsworn?
It's got
Great
a good
question.
I mean, do you want? Should I answer it, too? Like talking about all the like. The whole thing started with basically our government gives out like these grants. They're kind of smallish. They can be sizable later though, but you start off with a grant that you apply for developing games, and the first one's a concept definition grant. So I think it's up to like 50,000 Canadian.
I was going to ask what country's even in for this.
The province?
Canada,
It's within
Canada.
The province, right? Or is it Canada?
I
think
think
it's the
some
province.
percentage, largely.
Yeah, I think it's like 80 or 80% has to be within our province. Within Canada has to be spent on that. And when we originally applied, you kind of have to like fill out like what's your game, what's your experience, etc. We were originally pitching to do like a Metroidvania-ish, like rogue like kind of game, and it was in the beginning it was just like this like pixel art thing.
I'm glad it's not a pixel art game. Just, I don't know why, just sometimes the pixel art games
That's how we
aren't
got
for me.
together, and then doing it, and then later.
Sometimes. It depends on the
Maybe
game,
some,
but I guess like
different,
retro
but to be honest,
pixel
a lot
art
of
is
the
not for me.
direction Crowsworn, the way it's being developed, is also kind of been shaped by the team members you're able to find, like people we've
That's interesting.
built into the team along the way.
Depending
and
on
so
who they brought into the team, they brought their own ideas and stuff.
Like, here's what you can and can't do, and what things will look like, and you know, it's just like your artist tends to be able to draw this kind of stuff, so it's like, okay, that drives the direction or something.
That makes
Does
sense.
that kind of make sense?
Yeah, you play to your strengths.
Yeah, basically, you know.
Will there be multiple difficulty options?
Oh, interesting.
I mean,
Oh.
yeah, that's the plan. We're hoping to do that, and I think Duarte and I have
Okay.
been talking about already putting systems in the back, because we're not fans of the
Systems in the back.
I mean, I know I'm not a fan. I think Duarte agrees as well, but the difficulty thing where you just jack up the damage that a boss puts out, or their hit points or something like that, usually isn't. It's just not as, you know, it's kind of cheesy to put difficulty in that way. It just doesn't feel really good, right? So we're kind of doing difficulty options slightly differently, with like, well, not slightly, but very differently in terms of code structure and stuff.
See, so it's on the
Will there
back
be-
end. Whoa. Let's talk about that for a second. Alex, the main developer of, or the lead developer, we'll say, of Crowsworn, he was also the developer on another game, and the name escapes me right now. But Leth, when we were talking about it, when we did an interview on the last video, he was talking about how in that game, as you fought enemies, they would adapt to the way that you fought them. So if you always fought them on the ground, well, then maybe they'd jump away from you, or whatever. The enemies would adapt. I think that is absolutely fascinating, and right here we just got confirmation that that's exactly what's going to happen. There will be difficulty on the back end. It might not be something that you select, I want easy mode or I want hard mode or whatever, but if you die to the same enemy or maybe the same faction or in the same area over and over again, it's probably going to start slowing down a little bit. I don't know that the health is going to change, or maybe they'll, I don't know, something along that back end is going to change, and that's super interesting to
Any
me.
hidden areas that aren't necessary to beat the game?
I think Baroni answered that question.
Oh, there's gonna be
Yeah,
tons
just
of
a
hidden
yes.
areas that aren't necessary to beat the game. They already answered that in a
Will there
Kickstarter
be
backer.
crows in Crowsworn?
Yes, there will be crows. We've already seen them.
Yes.
What would you say has been the hardest aspect of developing the game?
Maybe everybody should
Ooh.
give their own answer. I have my opinions, but maybe ask everybody on the team.
I think the hardest part was probably the first, like, I don't know, like 8 months of us sort of working on finding the voice for literally
interesting.
what the music should sound like. There was a lot of conversation back and forth, a lot of iteration, and you know, pitches that were close but not quite there, or total failures, or, you know, like, it's
Total
now
failures,
things
that's
are-
rough.
the tone is set and it's much more
That's nice. Once there's direction, it would make it a little bit easier
I feel
to
like
go.
the expectations of me as a composer are kind of like they're set. as far as things go, and you know, anything we come up with that's like a little bit surprising or something that's good, you know, like we still have those moments where it's where we're trying things, but it's overall quite figured out. If that makes sense.
That's good. Yeah, you're able to get into a groove.
Sometimes
Set expectations is great.
To animate some characters that may have a lot going on in terms of animation. I recently did one. I won't go into details, but there was. I recently animated something that required that was very tough to animate, but in the end, I was very satisfied how it came out.
For me, I don't know. The Kickstarter was a new thing. I hadn't run a Kickstarter before. I mean, I wouldn't say it was hard. It just was like a new challenge. You know? All right, Duarte, you're up.
I didn't know Leth never did a Kickstarter.
Our hardest.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think of stuff on the moment right now. There are certainly things that are challenging, and what comes to mind is sometimes, especially in this game, there are oftentimes multiple systems that are interacting with each other, and when developing something new, to think about how this may affect previous things that have been done, 2 years ago, and given my memory's not always the greatest,
that's kind of hard to think about how long this game's been developing for too.
That comes to mind right now.
My opinion is toughest is like managing expectations sometimes. When I say that, I mean it's like, I keep saying like, if you have goals along the way, and then you get a new idea, and it's just like, I don't know, it's a new idea, and you think it's going to be great to add it into the game, but the overhead that it comes with ends up leading to bloat. So
yeah, it's gonna be
bloat
tough
in terms of development time, not bloat in terms of a bloated game. But so it's sometimes just like, oh man, this is a month of development time that we never really planned for or thought about, but it's too good of an idea to not act on,
That's exciting. They have the money to be able to add in the things that they need to add in, the things that they're excited about, the things that they really want to add in, and they're still knee deep in that, I'm sure. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that they're still, they haven't even thought of all the things that they're going to add to the game. They're still working on it, and it's still an iterative process, right? That's why they can't even say if it's going to come out in 2025. Like, who knows? They could keep coming up with more ideas, and I really love that they've raised enough money to make sure that they are going to be able to deliver on what it is that they want to deliver. They're not just trying to take the $1 million raised on their Kickstarter project and be like, hey, we're going to just deliver a good game. They're trying to deliver $1 million game, and that's really, I think that's really cool.
We're just thinking, everyone's going to love it. We're going to love it. We get excited about it, and then feel that's probably the most challenging part, the kind of accepting that you don't really know the game you're making. Kind of, you
don't know the game.
You know the game you're making, but the game kind of reveals itself to you as you go. If that makes sense.
That's really interesting.
Maybe.
How do you guys stay motivated for the long hours that you commit every day? Prospective game dev is asking. I think, if you're working on something you love, it starts off as a project that you love and you want to make it. It makes
the long hours don't feel like long hours when you're really into it.
True.
From our stance, and also for me, it's really important for me to get something that's like good enough to share with the team, because what everybody else is doing is so good. And then
that's true.
Point where it's like, oh yeah,
everybody's sharing their best. That's really cool.
Show the team, but also just the expectation from players as well.
Would the lore be pretty straightforward, or something that you think the community will need to really think to figure out?
I think it won't be like crazy nebulous. Like, it should be pretty straightforward what's going on. Maybe the P, like, go A to B sort of thing, but then there might be like questions. Well, what did this guy do? Why was that guy involved? And what's happening here? And those kinds of things.
I like that.
Probably find the answers to if you start.
I don't want to have to figure out the lore.
Items,
I'm not a lore guy.
Reading prompts or whatever it is, but
I am happy that there'll be something to dig into.
I don't have much experience doing this. Like, I've never done it before, but thinking about it in my head is really trying to, every time we put something in the game, is kind of put yourself in the shoes of, hypothetically, if you were in this game, in this world, what would a dialogue go down like, right? And as an example of something that I don't like that a lot of games do is, like, you interact with an NPC, and the first thing they say is like, hello, I'm like blah 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 something something, and I'm just like, when was the last time you just like went up to a person and the first thing they do was tell you their life story? You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
How much did the scope of the game change before versus after the Kickstarter?
It's not necessarily
man.
scope though. It's not like the length. It's just the quality that basically the money goes to allowing iteration, right? Like something that we would have just had to accept it upon like first or second iteration. We can go through and just really take it to like maximum quality, you know. For example, even the sound effects, if you didn't have funds, maybe we wouldn't have had the whole side chaining research and trying to figure these things out, and all that stuff takes time to implement. It's technology, it's balancing, you know, just
Interesting.
So,
just making sure that everything fits, everything's
wise, the scope changed,
good.
I don't know, 30 to 50%, but the quality probably went up by like 300%, you know.
Yeah, that's what I like to
most
hear.
people, they think when you talk about like scope creep or scope of a game, they just think of content. They don't think about.
I mean, even talking like stuff that I don't do, but if I don't know how much people pay attention, but if you go into Crowsworn and look at like the background textures or background assets, and you know, start comparing it to other games that are hand drawn, and just like compare the level of detail, and just think about how many hours somebody would have had to commit as an artist to take it to that render quality, right? And that's something that maybe we would have had lower.
Oh yeah,
whatever.
sure.
Probably
just
said
things
good
like that,
enough,
right? Same with animation, number of animation frames that we can get away with, like, you know.
Someone asked, is Love the one designing boss art?
David's designed some bosses, but I think most of the time, I'd say like 90% of it is like I designed the boss and kind of talked to him about the move sets, and then we kind of iterate a little bit back and forth, and he basically designs, like, animates the moves for them. But there is some bosses that David has designed on his own, I think. Not a lot, but there are some.
What will the difficulty be compared to Unworthy?
That's the game I was talking about earlier. If you've stuck around this long.
Room to stretch and heighten the difficulty curve.
It's different.
It's too different.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. I do need to play Unworthy.
It's also,
have you played Unworthy?
Unworthy was like kind of.
I keep hearing about it. I'm like, I kind of want to check it out.
I call it like a baptism. You know,
okay.
If you were baptized into game dev by doing that, that's my opinion. Like, you kind of made all the mistakes, knew what the problems were, and know what to do and what not to do, and yeah.
What's the process like from concept to implementation to playtesting of an enemy or boss?
It's all over the place.
Yeah, is each one different?
Yeah, because we're just juggling stuff. Like, art comes in, gets implemented. Usually, I kind of have the final say of tuning numbers and iterating on it with Alex and stuff and putting it together. And then I think it's like you take it to 90-95%. We'll probably revisit all of them again before the game launches, just to take a peek and see if everything kind of still holds up to.
Oh, that makes sense, because they're going to have new abilities, new whatever.
It all needs to kind of like blend together nicely, right?
Oh yeah, true. Like, yeah, so you're saying there really isn't like a normal process for, like, say we want to add a new enemy to a new area. Is there like one, like Kuzman, you might design the guy, then talk with Duarte about what he can be doing, or I mean, it's just kind of like each one's different. There's no kind of standard-ish.
Well, one of the recent enemies that we designed, that's not even a boss, has a lot of moves, and we sort of like stuffed it in with the base stuff, and then you like get to fight him, and you kind of experience the fight, and you go with it, and you're like, oh man, like, you know, it'd be cool if he did this here.
Yeah.
And we go back and we had another move, and it's like, oh, you know, like now he's in this area. It'd be cool if we actually had this thing. And it's like, oh wait, what if these two enemies interacted this way with one another, right? So it's just kind of like, that's what I mean. Cool. The game like reveals itself to you. Like, you can do the base stuff, but in terms of enemy design, I hope I'm very curious to see how players will feel about the enemies in Crowsworn. I think it'll be a unique trip.
The boss with the big gun, he looks awesome. Will we get him as a boss demo? Oh, greedy.
Oh man, getting all the bosses as demos.
Pretty please.
Stop buying the hand that feeds you, man.
I saw he asked that more than once, so I was like, okay, I'll put him in Crow Cart. There you go.
Yeah, we just play him in Crow Cart.
Just get silence from the team. Will we be able to continue exploring the world after the final boss, or will resume from before the fight?
Ooh, interesting.
Like in the game?
Yeah, I guess in the final game, if you kill the final boss, will you be able to continue playing that save? And kind of keep exploring, I guess.
They might not have an answer for that. I'd be very surprised.
That's something
They
King
might
can
not
say.
know
I feel
yet.
there's like spoiler. I'm just
Yeah,
sitting here,
yeah.
I think there's like spoiler implications to that question, so I'm not gonna answer it. I don't think
Okay.
we should. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, you have to
take
wait
no
to find
answer
out.
to end the stream. Yeah, I guess we can't answer that one. If you guys have
Yeah.
time for another, yes, we do. How do you balance coolness versus gameplay feel if they're at odds with each other?
Ooh.
I mean, gameplay is first, right? So if there's
Yeah.
a case where we can't figure out how to make something,
I
work in
do
the
like
game
that
and have it
they
function,
went for the rule of cool.
we
Is what they've
won't
said. I wonder
do
if they'll
it, but
bring
I
up
think that's where
here.
we say a lot of the effort and time takes, where you spend a lot of time iterating to try and really make that thing work, and it's not always easy. You know, some things it's always like the truth that the player's going to experience and be like, oh yeah, that feels good, and it might be the simplest looking mechanic, but it's like this thing took weeks to shave every corner, make it feel perfect, and have it blend with everything else seamlessly and not have issues. You know, it does take a lot of time for the simplest things if you want them to be for lack of a better term, like perfect.
But even if something is super cool, if it doesn't feel good, you're gonna be like,
Yeah, if you can't get it in, you can't.
Yeah.
We'll cut it. If you can't
Yeah.
get in there, it could be the coolest idea in theory, but it's not cool if it sucks.
It's not cool if it sucks. That makes sense.
like the claw and croaker. No,
Yeah.
some dispute over that.
I do like the idea that there was the rule of cool that they were developing, and basically what that means is it doesn't necessarily have to make sense of how certain things work, especially with the attacks or whatever. For example, being able to throw the scythe and being able to shoot it with the gun, and so in that way it extends the range and whatever else, like that necessarily doesn't make sense logically, but it's pretty freaking cool. Yeah, the rule of cool is just something that was a design principle that they've been following for a long time, and I really like that. So there you go. That was the Q&A from Crowsworn, boiled down and condensed as much as possible. Thank you so much to my members for supporting the channel. Thank you for watching this video all the way to the end. I do appreciate it. I hope you're even half as excited for Crowsworn as I am. Like, I really can't wait for this game. I love all the open questions and answers, and I highly suggest you follow their Twitter. I will make sure to leave a link to that down in the description below, because they're constantly sharing all kinds of different updates of different enemies and this, that, and the other. They're trying not to do spoilers, but also just kind of share what's going on with the game. We've got a little ways to wait before this game releases. I guess a year and a half out, give or take, but it's on its way. We know it's there, and it's really nice getting those sweet updates. Again, my name is Relia. I'll talk to you more real soon. Thanks. Bye.